you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another episode of How to Get Good. Now today we're going to be going over status effects, how you get them to work in your favor, where they come from, what types of damage does, which types of status effects, and all that good stuff. They're all going to be explained, but you need to understand which damage you should choose for your particular build before you even go into status effects. Now this should be quite simple for most, but to be honest, there are a lot of people that misunderstand it, and that's the whole point of the series anyway, for people to learn. So, when it comes to magic types, or magic type abilities, anything that costs magicka generally, not always, but some of the time, they scale off of maximum magicka and spell damage. And on the physical side of things, the physical stuff scales off of weapon damage and max stamina. That's usually quite straightforward for most. However, there is a type of damage that people misunderstand, and that is magic damage. Magic damage is like an element. It isn't, oh, if you cast a spell with a magic ability or magic bar or whatever. So, here's an example of that. Now, we have War Maiden here, which is very straight to the point. It says it has spell crit. Now, this means basically anything that does magic damage or heals, you will have a heightened chance to crit from it. Your maximum magic will increase the strength of those. Your spell damage will increase the strength of those. And then it adds 400 spell damage to your magic damage abilities. People get this extremely confused. They think that because I'm casting this with magic, that is a magic damage ability, right? Wrong. That is flame damage. That only applies to two things. Spell damage, which we do have on the set, and flame damage. Those are the two bonuses that boost this. Now, if we look into our other skills, for example, soul magic, this, if we have more magic, this does magic damage. If we have more stamina, then we have physical damage, or spell and weapon damage as well considered. Whichever side of the scale you're on, one or the other, this will enhance one of the two damage types. For us, we are scaled into magicka, or spec'd into magicka, so this will do magic damage. As you can clearly see, that specifically says magic damage. This specifically says flame damage. They are different. People get this confused. Same as this as well. If you have increased spell damage or increased magic damage on your sets, this will be boosted. If you have fire damage here, you have lightning damage here. These are all shock, fire, you have ice, and magic is an element. So for the purposes of sets very much like this, or even bonuses or skills or whatever that say magic damage, it's specific to a type, not everything. Now, where that is confused is because things like Sororia increases your spell damage, and that does contribute to everything and every element type. Now, this is also true for physical stuff. There are some sets out there in the game that will give you weapon damage. Now that considers all physical types. So physical, bleed, poison, and disease are all boosted by weapon damage increases. But when you have a set that increases your poison damage abilities, all of your flat physical ones are not affected. So what I mean by that, if we go into skills and we look at, say, dual wield, and we'll pick up this ability here. This does physical damage. So if you have a weapon damage increase, this will work. This skill here does poison damage. So if you have weapon damage, of course this will work. But if you have something that only increases poison damage, this one will scale up a bit because that will consider it. This one will not because this is physical, not poison. Hopefully that made somewhat of a bit of sense. But just pay very, very close attention to the actual type that your set or your skill is boosting. Some do everything. Some do specifics. Know the difference. Now, since we've understood that, now what I'm going to show you is the basics of status effects. Status effects are chances to apply them based on the damage type or spell type applied. So, there are 3 types for the Magicka type abilities. Fire, Ice, and Lightning. There isn't one for Magic. Now, generally when they apply, they do a small amount of damage, like an initial hit. Now, we'll go with Ice first. What you're looking for is a debuff above his head, or underneath the health bar, in fact. There. That one there, the purpley pink one with the broken sword, which is reapplying, actually. We got lucky there. It proc twice. That is minor maim. For using ice damage, did it again, you have a chance to apply minor maim, which means that target affected will do 15% less damage to anyone it hits. Yes, that can fire on multiple targets if you have an area of effect ability that can hit multiple targets. It can reapply on top of itself. It can reapply after itself. Sometimes it allows you to have it up 100% of the time, depending on the skill or the status effect chance and all that good stuff. Lots of ways to do it. But essentially, it comes from ice damage first off. Now, if you change the element, it's done it again. See, constant debuff. This is a defensive type of status effect. If you change the element, it has different stuff. So we'll go on to fire now, which we can do with our front bar, actually. You're looking for not the effect itself, but a circle of swirling fire, which is on the target now. That is a burning status effect. That comes from fire, and instead of reducing the damage of the target, that actually does damage to the target. That's damage over time. That is an actual flame dot, and it can reapply as much as it likes as long as your chance is high. Now, if we have lightning, lightning is very different. Lightning is a buff to your group by debuffing the target. Now, what I'm going to do is put a lightning stuff on the front bar of the Destro skill, because I don't want to go into off balance and stuff today, because that will get confusing. Let's, actually no, we'll use this, because that's going to be definitely lightning. So, what we have here is this. Now, that's the dot you can see on the target, of course, but doing damage with lightning damage can fire another effect. That's Zahn, we don't want to show that. As you can see, there's a debuff there. That one on the left there, which is now fading, is called minor vulnerability. Also known as concussion. Concussion makes minor vulnerability happen. It comes from lightning damage. So the more lightning you have, the more likely you are to make that happen. Now, what that does is it affects the target with a debuff of sorts, which makes your entire group do 8% more damage to the target. There are so many ways to get minor vulnerability in the game, but the most basic form is lightning damage. So what you take with that information and do with it is entirely up to you. Now, when we come to physical weapons, these are very different damage types and different bonuses, but they're applied in the same manner. So, if you do physical damage flat out, you won't get any status effect. Much like magic damage. If you like, magic and physical are the basic types of damage for either side of the scale. But you can change that, because instead of doing just physical, you could do poison, or you could do disease. Now, poison comes with its own status effect, which is like the fire burning status effect, except it's stronger and a bit longer. So the poison status effect is a 6-second damage over time. We're going to try and... we don't even need to apply it. This skill actually comes with it, which is handy, this skill here. So if you're looking carefully, you'll see a purple skull. That debuff there. That actually does damage every tick for 6 seconds. It's actually every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. As you can see there. Now, if you're doing poison damage, that's a chance to apply it. But that particular skill is guaranteed. So, this skill, although it's a good demonstration to show you what it looks like, is a bad gauge as far as chance is concerned. However, if you're using this ability, you can guarantee you're going to have it all the time. So, that works too. Now, there are sets in the game. There are skills in the game that can have a chance to do that. So, poison, you now know, although scales off the same stats as physical, has a chance to do more. Now, defile comes from disease. Now, we don't have any disease abilities with us right now, but I can show you what the status effect looks like. So if you're a Nightblade, for example, or maybe even a Necromancer, you do have access to a lot of disease-type damage. You have a chance of applying this. Now, don't look at the purple skull. Look at the other image. See the cut there? With the slices on it? It looks like someone's just gouged out something out of somebody's chest. That ability there is Minor Defile. Minor Defile reduces the effectiveness of health recovery and healing received by 15%. Now, although that may have more application in PvP than it does PvE, that is still very, very beneficial in some fights, especially when enemies start healing too much, because that will reduce it. Also pay attention to that on yourself, because you know what you're affected with when you're trying to spam heals and your healing gets nuked because you have that effect on. Now, this is when it comes to build choice. All flat damage from physical sides do the same. But, like I showed you with the magic ability at the beginning, different sets, skills, and abilities scale each individual one separately. So at base, if I do 100 damage with a melee weapon, that's 100 damage. If I change my damage to poison, I still do 100 damage. If I change it to disease, I still do 100 damage. But if I have a set that buffs one of those element types, that will increase it. If I have a set that buffs flat weapon or spell damage or whatever, that will increase all of them. But the side effect of these different types, and the reason for having the different types, is the status effect itself. So if I want to ignore all passive bonuses for a Destro staff, and I forget the fact that ice is tanky, fire is extra damage, and lightning is, of course, AoE. If I forget that right now, and I hit with a light attack with a flame staff, a light attack with a lightning staff, a light attack with an ice staff, they're all going to be the same. But their effects are going to be different. So ice is protective. Minor maim, 15% reduction to damage from those targets. Fire is aggressive. If you hit them with a burning status effect, you do damage over time to that target. Lightning is kind of a buff, because if you do damage with lightning, you have a chance to increase everybody's damage, including your own, by 8%. Poison is just like fire, where you have a damage over time, except it's longer. And disease debuffs the target's ability to heal. That is why in PvP, on my Dragon Knight, you will see me do this before every fight. It's not to be a spammy bow sniper from range and annoy people, although that is a valid playstyle if you really want to, because, let's face it, snipers are supposed to be at range. It's for this. It's for the guaranteed poison status effect, and it's for the guaranteed minor defile. I'm debuffing the target, adding a dot to it, and starting the fight with a bang. Know your passives, know your status effects, and then figure out how you're going to apply that to your build. You'll see that I've got Warden builds out there with loads and loads of ice all over them. Do you know why? More minor maim. More protection for the group because they take less damage from the targets that are affected by those status effects. We're not going to go into all the possibilities, but just understand that there are very good ways to utilize that status effect and actually pump out a lot more useful benefits for your overall build, depending on what the design of it is. Also, you can heighten it as well. There are passives in the game that can increase status effects. There are passives in the game, or sets in the game, in fact, that have them guaranteed. Some skills as well, much like this one. And there are traits. So you can actually change the traits of your weapon. So this is infused at the moment, but you can change it to charged. Charged will increase the chance of applying those special abilities. So if you were a flame build, for example, and you wanted as much burden status effect as possible, you would go with a destruction staff. Make sure you get these passives here to increase your chance, and you would probably want to go charged so you could borderline have burner status effect all the time. Things like that. Not saying that's how you have to build, but you do have choices, and status effects are very, very important to the game. They can be a game changer, full stop. You'll notice there was some whinging recently about the alterations to Ice Heart. This is very, very important, by the way. If we look at this set here, we don't even need to put it on. This is applied by doing crit damage. The initial bonus is crit chance. So the first bonus buffs the chance to do the actual effect. So that's already a plus. And when you do, you get a damage shield. Great, we have some defense. We do damage. Great, we do some damage. This is a lot more defensive on the surface than it looks. Your damage shield, you think, is the only thing that you're getting. Remember, resistances actually are contributing towards the strength of your damage shield, because you do consider your resistances while you have this shield on. You didn't used to in the past, but for a while now, we have done. But look at the damage type. What did we just learn that Frost does? Frost has a chance to apply minor maim, which means not only do you have resistances, not only do you have a damage shield on top of those resistances, but you also have a chance to make the enemies hit you for even less by doing this damage type. Now, this isn't a way of saying, oh, this is overpowered or this is underpowered. This is a very good example of paying attention to your passives and your bonuses and your status effects and knowing how they can affect you as a player. We're going to go over one more, and that is actually Grofdar, which I think I might have in my bag. If not, we're going to look at it in here. Oh, it's here. This does a circle of fire. Every 1 second it does damage. What did we learn a moment ago? Fire damage can apply a burn and status effect. Now, if you consider, for example, a Dragon Knight passive, which is here, Combustion. Whoops, wrong button. Go back one. If you apply a burn and status effect, you get 500 magic back. So every single second that Grofdar is firing, you have a chance to fire that status effect. You get a benefit from that too as a Dragon Knight because it's stronger, and you get magic back. So your free proc could be giving you 500 magic back every 1 second if it just consistently fires off a burn and status effect. So again, this is another prime example of if you understand what damage type you're doing, you can benefit from it quite drastically. So understand what they do. Check out all the different sets and skills that you could possibly use yourself to enhance the design of what it is you want to do. It's not a case of just slap everything on and be done. Know what they do, and that is when you come up with more exciting new ways to play, different ways to construct your character, and of course, possibly more fun as well, because when you start running into a room with loads of ice damage and you freeze everyone on the spot and make them not hit very hard at all and you feel like a god, that's actually quite entertaining. Now, I'm going to run up to this target with a charged ice staff. So, I'm not going to add any additional flame damage whatsoever. It's just going to come from my monster set. If I can get this to fire. Come on. Don't let me down. There we go. Look, burning status effect on the target. Constant. I've increased my chance. It's come from the proc. I'm doing more damage just because it fired. There are many different ways to utilize all the different status effects, but know what you want at the time and try and optimize around that if you can. Sometimes it's nice to have the free stuff. Sometimes you can push it to happen. Anyway, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. And I fully appreciate your support, so thank you very much, of course, for watching. But if you are not subscribing, please hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website, XynodeGaming.com, where all the written guides are. Do not forget, hit that notification bell. Then you will know when I upload new videos. They're coming really, really fast now. There's lots of stuff coming. Uploading my live streams every single day. Plenty more episodes from this to come. More all about mechanics coming. And of course, once Horrorstorm hits, we are going to be having all the updates for the builds and possibly some new ones. Once again, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.